"Sir, this is not a costume." The airport manager laughed and waved off the tomb guard like he was a kid playing dress-up. Sergeant Ethan Cole stood upright, and the bright lights of Chicago O'Hare made his ceremonial uniform shine. Every badge is a tribute to a fallen soldier. Some passengers took pictures while others whispered. They thought he was a show, a problem for the manager. He ripped it up and said, "Your first-class tickets are no good." Ethan didn't flinch, but with one phone call, every jet in Terminal 3 would stop, and the man who questioned him would have to face something no one saw coming. Before we get into this story, where in the world are you watching this? Please tell us in the comments and click the subscribe button and the bell icon. If you think that ideals like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, help us preserve their memory alive. Sergeant Ethan Cole walked through the busy terminal of Chicago O'Hare International Airport. His polished black boots made a clicking sound on the shiny tile floor. His navy blue dress uniform was clean and pristine, and it was heavy with tradition. He wore gray pants, white gloves, and a kepi cap, which are the clothes of a tomb guard, a sentry of the tomb of the nameless soldier. Every stitch and badge told a story of service, honor, and sacrifice. Ethan was 28 years old, and moved with the disciplined precision of a man who had walked the mat at Arlington National Cemetery, where he guarded the dead through rain, snow, and the heat of summer. He was going to Washington, D.C. today for a special memorial service at Arlington. He had to wear the ceremonial uniform for this assignment. Some people were curious, and others whispered as he walked by. To most others, he was a show, a living piece of history. Ethan thought he was just a soldier doing his duty. He walked up to the first-class check-in desk for Flight 472 to D.C., holding a single leather travel bag in his gloved hand. There wasn't much of a line, just a businessman in front of him tapping his phone like crazy. Ethan stood at parade rest, his expression blank and his posture flawless. Years of standing guard had trained him to overlook things that bothered him, like tourists taking pictures or people looking at his outfit out of the corner of their eyes. Colonel Robert Hayes, his commanding officer, had booked him a first-class seat because the trip was planned at the last minute and he needed to arrive in perfect shape. Ethan didn't like luxury, but he had to follow orders. He stepped forward slowly when it was his turn. He said, "Good morning," in a calm voice that showed he was trained to be in charge. "Sergeant Ethan Cole, 3rd Infantry Regiment. I have a first-class reservation on the 1040 to Washington, D.C." He put his military ID, passport, and ticket confirmation on the counter in a straight line. Karen Walsh, the counter agent, looked up and stopped moving when she saw her name badge. She was shocked by the shiny brass, the starched outfit, and the kepi cap. Her business smile faded. Just a second," she muttered as she reached for her phone. She turned a little bit away and spoke in a low voice. "Martin, I need you at the first-class check-in." "Yes, now." Ethan stood still, his face giving nothing away. He was used to being looked at, but Karen's voice made him nervous. A man in a smart suit came up to me within minutes. His name badge said he was Martin Brooks, the terminal manager. Brooks looked at Ethan with a hint of skepticism. Ethan asked in a calm voice, "Is there a problem?" "Sir, may I ask why you are wearing that?" Brooks remarked, pointing vaguely at the uniform. "I'm on official business, going to Arlington for a memorial service," Ethan said, pointing to his papers. "My commanding officer made the reservation." Brooks picked up the ticket confirmation and looked at it very carefully. "This is very strange. We don't usually see military people in ceremonial dress on commercial flights," Ethan said. "I didn't expect the change in schedule." Brooks went very close to Karen and whispered, "I need to be in D.C. by evening." Ethan could still hear. "Call security. We need more proof." Karen nodded and picked up the phone again. Ethan stayed calm, even though he could see that some of the other passengers were observing him, some with interest and some with unease. Outside of the military, people had been suspicious of his outfit before. 2 security guards came up to me. Their badges were Mike Torres and Lisa Evans. Torres, a stocky man with a buzz cut, straightened up a little when he saw Ethan, which was a sign of respect. "Sir," Torres responded, sounding professional yet sorry. "We're sorry for the trouble, but we need to check your paperwork." "Of course," Ethan said in a calm voice. "I know the rules must be followed," Brooks said, cutting in with a stern voice. "We need to make sure that this uniform is allowed. People have worn ceremonial outfits without permission in the past." "Don't worry," Ethan said, but Brooks cut him off. Brooks replied, "Security will need to check your identity and permission to travel this way." "Please step aside," Torres said, pointing to a private screening area. "Over here, Sergeant," he murmured in a low voice. As they walked, Ethan heard Evans say to Torres, "This is crazy. My cousins are in the Marines, Torres said. You don't question a soldier like this. I know, Torres said quietly, but orders are orders. Torres checked Ethan's military ID against his passport and ticket in the screening area, although he clearly didn't want to. Everything is fine, Sergeant, he responded as he handed back the papers. I'm sorry for the trouble, Ethan said. No need to apologize. Security measures are there for a reason. Brooks came in, still looking doubtful. He asked, Have we confirmed this person's identity, as if Ethan weren't there? Yes, sir, Evans said. His papers are real. His military ID shows that he is Sergeant Ethan Cole of the 3rd Infantry, and is on official orders. Brooks walked around Ethan, looking at his uniform with disgust. He said, All this show seems too much for a flight. Do taxpayers know how much these costumes cost? Ethan stayed at parade rest, looking straight ahead. Sir, this uniform is for the fallen. The highest authorities have given permission for it to be worn, Brooks remarked. Well, it's causing a disruption, and then he moved on. People are looking and taking pictures. It's a security issue. Brooks went back to the counter and looked over Ethan's ticket with Karen, while those watching got more and more interested. This first-class ticket, Brooks continued, holding the confirmation up like it was suspicious. How did you get it? Ethan said in a calm voice. As I said, my commanding officer set it up. Brooks sounded quite doubtful when he said, And you want us to believe that the military buys first-class tickets for its soldiers? These seats cost more than $600. Ethan stayed calm. Yes, the Army allows for appropriate accommodations, because the reassignment is urgent and there are ceremonial requirements. Someone behind them in line said something. Why are you treating him like a criminal? He's a tomb guard, for heaven's sake. Brooks turned around for a second. Ma'am, we're following standard security procedures, he said before turning back to Ethan. How did you pay for this ticket? Our records show that it was bought yesterday. Ethan said, I didn't buy it myself, and his patience didn't waver. It was set up through military channels. So you don't have a receipt? Brooks pushed. Ethan said, The confirmation of my orders should be enough. Brooks and Karen gazed at each other. Karen appeared more and more worried. Brooks said, I'm sorry, but we can't check to see if this ticket is real. We'll have to move you to economy class for security reasons. People who were watching couldn't believe what they saw. Ethan dealt with the obvious bigotry that was dressed up as a security issue. Did I break a specific rule? He inquired in a calm voice. Sir, this isn't a debate, Brooks responded firmly. We have full discretion over flight assignments for security purposes. Your clothing and inability to verify the ticket raise red flags. You can accept economy seating or reschedule your travel. Ethan knew what was going on. Making a scene would make the tomb guard and the organization he worked for seem bad with every step. He responded with respect. As you wish. I won't make a scene. Brooks looked relieved and swiftly processed the change, giving Ethan a new boarding pass for seat 22B in economy. Torres came up to Ethan as he was about to leave. Sergeant, I'm sorry, he remarked in a low voice. This isn't right. Thanks, officer, Ethan said. Some fights aren't worth it. Getting on the plane was hard. Ethan took off his kepi hat and put it under his arm to get through the entrance. His big shoulders barely fit in the tight aisle of the ceremonial jacket. As he walked to the back, flight attendants gazed at him. When he got to row 22, he saw an old man on the window seat. The man's weathered face lit up when he saw Ethan's uniform. The man stood up and muttered, Well, I'll be damned. A guard for my tomb on my flight. Ethan respectfully said, Good morning, sir, as he put his hat in the overhead bin and sat down in the middle seat. Harold Bennett, the man stated, as he reached out his hand. Retired from the Marine Corps after 28 years of service. They put me out to pasture. Ethan shook his hand. 3rd Infantry Regiment Sergeant Ethan Cole. Harold smiled. I knew that uniform right away. My unit worked security at Arlington in '74, the hottest summer on record, and you guys never flinched. Ethan grinned a little as he moved his jacket around in the little room. Harold moved closer. I saw what happened up front, he remarked in a low voice. That pencil pusher had no right to treat you like that. That's terrible, Ethan said in a courteous way. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Bull, Harold said with authority. That was just plain discrimination. You should file a complaint when we land. Ethan said, Mr. Bennett, there are bigger battles to fight. Harold laughed. Call me Harold, and maybe you're right. But back in my day, people respected the uniform more. As people got on the bus, their discussion flowed. Harold told Ethan stories about his time in Vietnam, and Ethan listened with real interest. People nearby listened in on the impassioned veteran's stories and the quiet dignity of the young soldier. 30 minutes into the flight, as Harold told a story about his time as a guard at Arlington, there was a loud noise few rows back. Is there a doctor on board? A flight attendant's voice rang out through the cabin. We need medical assistance immediately. Ethan turned to see a man fall down in the aisle, and a woman holding his hand in fear. He muttered to Harold, "Excuse me," and then he unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. Harold moved his legs so that Ethan could get by. Ethan moved quickly, and everyone noticed his uniform. Sarah, the flight attendant, crouched next to a middle-aged guy who was lying still. Ethan said in a calm voice, "I know how to respond to medical emergencies. Can I help?" Sarah looked up and her face lit up with relief. "Yes, please. He just fell down without warning." Ethan crouched down next to the man and felt for a pulse. He definitely said, "No pulse. I'm starting CPR. Please tell the captain that we have a passenger whose heart has stopped." Ethan started chest compressions with experienced precision. His ceremonial jacket made it hard for him to move, but not for him to focus. He counted to himself. 1, 2, 3, 4. The cabin went quiet as the occupants watched with open eyes as the soldier they thought was just there for show operated with expert skill. Sarah came back with the AED. Ethan kept the man's rhythm going by putting the pads on his chest. The system looked at the data and then suggested a shock. "Clear," Ethan said, making sure everyone was back before he gave it. Ethan checked again after another round of CPR. "I have a pulse," he said, his voice feeble but there. "Leave the AED on and keep an eye on it." The captain's voice came across the intercom in a crackling way. "Please stay seated with your seatbelts fastened. Cabin crew, get ready for landing. We're making an emergency landing at Pittsburgh International Airport." Ethan kept an eye on the man, whose name he found out was James Carter. "Stay with me, Mr. Carter," he urged in a calm voice. "Help is waiting on the ground." As soon as the jet landed, paramedics got on board. Ethan said, "Possible cardiac arrest. About 20 minutes ago the patient lost consciousness and their pulse. CPR was given, and then the AED gave them one shock. Their pulse came back, but it is still weak." The main paramedic nodded. She said, "Textbook work. He wouldn't have made it if he hadn't gotten CPR for a few more minutes." James's wife held Ethan's hand tightly. "Thank you," she said quietly, tears flowing down her face. "How can we ever pay you back?" "No repayment necessary, ma'am," Ethan said. "I'm just glad I could help," she said. Ethan chose a quiet spot in the terminal where no one could see him. He looked at his watch. He would be late for the Arlington ceremony because of the delay. He had to report in because of protocol. He called Colonel Hayes. A clear voice replied after 2 rings. "Con Hayes." "Sir, Sergeant Cole here. I'm having trouble getting to my destination," Hayes remarked. "You should have landed in D.C. 20 minutes ago. The Pentagon says you're still in Pittsburgh." "Yes, sir. There was a medical emergency on board, so we had to land without planning." "Did you have anything to do with it?" Sergeant Hayes inquired, his voice changing. "I helped until the paramedics got there, sir." There was a chuckle. "Always the hero." The captain said over the radio that a tomb guard did CPR to save a life during the journey. "Is that you?" "Yes, sir. The passenger is stable and getting help." "Good job," Hayes replied, sounding pleased for once. "But how the hell did you get into economy? I told you to fly first class." Ethan thought for a moment. "There was a problem with the seats at departure, sir." "What kind of problem?" Hayes asked, his voice getting sharper. Ethan answered, "It's not important, sir." Hayes told them to give me the full report now. Ethan straightened up without thinking. "When I got to O'Hare, airline staff questioned my first-class reservation even though I had the right paperwork. I was not allowed to board in first class, and was moved to economy," Hayes asked in a low, menacing voice. "On what grounds?" "The terminal manager was worried about my uniform and whether my ticket was real." "Sir, are you saying that you were treated unfairly because you were wearing ceremonial clothes?" Hayes remarked in a cold voice. "Sir, it seemed like people were doubtful that a soldier could get premium seating," Hayes exclaimed. "And you accepted this," with apparent anger. Sir Ethan said, "I thought it was wrong to make a scene. The uniform means more than just personal shame." There was a long hush after that. Finally, Sergeant Hayes replied, "Your restraint is commendable," his placid voice hiding his wrath. "But this isn't just about you. It's about how much you respect the Army and the tomb you guard." "Which airline?" "American Airlines, sir. Terminal 3 at O'Hare." Martin Brooks was the manager. "I see," Hayes responded in a voice that was chilly and professional. "Go on to D.C. I'll take care of this." Martin Brooks was looking over the manifest at O'Hare when his phone rang. The caller ID said Executive Management. He stood up straight. "Brooks is speaking." "Martin, this is David Larson, Director of Operations," a voice remarked, sounding quite tense. "Come to my office right now. Operations at Terminal 3 are on hold for now. Suspended." Brooks said again, not believing it. On what grounds? Just get here, Larson said. Brooks rushed to Larson's office, his mind racing. There were a lot of people in the room. Karen Walsh, who looked pale and nervous, security officers Torres and Evans, 2 men in suits with FAA badges, and a man in army dress blues with high-ranking insignia. Larson started with Martin Brooks. This is Colonel Robert Hayes from the 3rd Infantry Regiment, along with FAA representatives Laura Adams and John Taylor. They're here to talk about something that happened with Sergeant Ethan Cole. Brooks hesitated. Excuse me, who? The tomb guard who you didn't give a good seat to this morning? Hayes stated in a harsh voice. The same guard who saved a passenger's life during an emergency landing that could have been avoided if he had been in his assigned seat. Brooks turned pale. That was for safety reasons. Our rules. Adams cut in. I've looked over your protocols. None support treating people differently because of their military status or uniform. In fact, they all say the opposite. Larson pointed to a screen that showed surveillance footage. We've looked into the incident. What I see is a respected soldier being treated with disrespect, even though there is proof. And this isn't the only time this has happened. We've seen similar complaints over the past year. All under your team, Mr. Brooks. Taylor said something. We're ordering a full operational audit based on what we've seen. All flights from Terminal 3 are on hold until we make sure everything is in order. Ethan stood at attention at Arlington 2 days later, having finished his ceremonial responsibilities. The tomb of the nameless soldier loomed in front of him, a quiet reminder of why he fought. An assistant came up. Sergeant Cole, people are here to see you. Colonel Hayes and David Larson from American Airlines waited in the reception area. At ease, Sergeant, Hayes remarked when Ethan stood up straight. Mr. Larson has something to talk about. Larson walked forward with a serious look on his face. Sergeant Cole, I'm here to tell you that American Airlines is very sorry for how you were treated at O'Hare. It was unprofessional, unfair, and against our values. Ethan said, Thank you, sir. That's fine. Larson went on. We've made changes. Mr. Brooks is out, and Ms. Walsh is being moved to a new job while she gets training. The FAA audit cost us millions, but it showed us that there are problems with the system. Hayes kept his eye on Ethan. James Carter, the passenger you saved, is doing better. His family wants to meet you in D.C. Ethan nodded, and a look of relief crossed his face. That's great news, sir, Larson responded. There's more. We're making a protocol for military personnel on official duty, and we would like your input. Ethan thought about this. The delay in Pittsburgh turned out to be a good thing. Sir, if I had been in first class, I might not have been there to help Mr. Carter. Sometimes we end up where we need to be, even if it's not where we planned. Larson nodded. Good job, Sergeant, Hayes asked in a gentler voice. Have you ever been judged unfairly because of how you look? How do you deal with disrespect? Do you stand up for yourself like Sergeant Cole, or do you do something else? Tell us your story. Your voice matters. This is the story of a soldier and a stranger, a rough journey from Chicago, a uniform, and a heartbeat that converted shame into bravery. At the tomb of the unknown soldier, where every salute and every stride remembers the dead, this is a reminder that sometimes the best homage is saving a life in the middle of the mayhem. So, take a break today. Remember Ethan, James Carter, and the nameless heroes whose sacrifices live on in our acts. Share this tale not simply to commemorate them, but also to remind us all that responsibility is at its best when it helps others. And if you ever go to Arlington, watch the Sentinels march, count their steps and listen. You might be able to feel the heartbeat of a nation, constant and unbroken despite the cost of sacrifice. The story is over, but the lesson stays. A soldier's uniform is more than just clothes and medals. It carries the weight of honor, duty, and the lives of those who gave everything. And occasionally, when things are quiet, the tiniest acts of bravery and calm can turn turmoil into lives saved. Ethan Cole went back to work at Arlington, where the tomb stood silently but spoke volumes about sacrifice. The pulse of a nation, steady, proud, and unbroken, continued in the steps of every sentinel, and in the thanks of people whose lives are silently protected by heroes like him.